All right, here is our video lesson today. This I have titled Winter Treasures. It was a gray value scale for the design with adding tints. Not a very limited color palette. I think you're going to enjoy this one. So let me know what you think. Give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe and let's get started. Okay, I have base coated this surface by rolling on two, well, you really only need one coat of Snow White on your prepped surface. Multi-purpose sealer first, then the paint. Okay, now, so I want to create a mottled background here. So I've got on my palette Salem Blue, Victorian Blue, and navy blue. I'm not sure if I'm going to use the navy blue. I think it's going to be too dark because I want to keep this light in the background. And then I've got my base color of white. So I'm going to first load a little bit of white onto, I've got a 1-inch filbert wash brush. And I'm just going to apply some of the white in here. And pick up a little bit of my Salem Blue. And add it in, blend it around. I want more white in there. Little X's is what you're doing, although I have a very large brush here. I still want my strokes to be little X's. I don't want to blend my color completely away. I still want to see that color, so a little more white. And I'll pick up a little bit of this Victorian Blue. Put that in there. I'm going to work it up into that other blue. More white. And I'm very softly giving some X's there. I'm going to remove a little bit of the paint off my brush here. Because I don't want to keep laying paint down. I want to blend it out now. Little X's back and forth. If your paint starts feeling a little bit tacky, but you want to blend it a little bit more, just very lightly spritz it with some water. Not very much, because if you put too much water on there when you go into it with your brush, you're going to remove your paint. So this edge right here is starting to dry, so I need to get that pre-wetted again. Some white. I really like this Salem Blue, so I'm going to probably use a little bit more of that than the other blue. So again, I want to lay in some white. Good amount of white there. And then my Salem Blue. If you want to just use the Salem Blue and the white on your design, that's fine. I just removed a lot of the paint from my brush because there was a lot in there. And it was getting a little bit too full. X's. Gently blend that. I'm just barely tickling into those other colors so that I can blend it. Looks like I missed some areas there. Okay, I'm going to put a little tiny bit of this blue down here. I'm going to wipe my brush off and go into some white. And we'll put a little bit more of that blue. Since I have it up there, I want to carry it into another place here on my design. And add some white down here. Remove the excess paint from my brush, and now I'm just going to tickle blend those colors together. Just barely using the tips of the brush to make little X strokes. I'm going to wipe it off. I've got quite a glare on this, so I can't see it too well. I'm going to lift it up. It almost looks like a sky on there. A little spritzing here. Alright, I've got my pattern lines on here. And I'm going to begin by base coating my skates in with Gray Sky. So we want to get a little bit of water brush and pull out some paint. And I left off the detail work on the skates, so we want to get all the undercoating done first. These are going to be white skates, but we need to get some dark color underneath so we can make the white be a little bit brighter. So just nice smooth coats. Paint each thing individually. I'm going to go a little bit darker with the paint on the blades. So I'll go in here and do this. This is the tongue. A little bit too much paint there. This is the back edge of the other side of the skate. Okay, and we'll do that other skate over there the same way, but down here on the blade, I want to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to take a round brush, I think. I'm going to get some black on my palette. We could get out another dark gray, but we can just keep this more a limited palette if we just mix our colors. So I'm going to take some black and some of this gray sky, and I'm going to make a medium value gray here. It's almost leaning towards the dark side. Let me add just a touch more light to it. Yeah, that's just a touch too light, so a little bit of black. Okay, so we're going to put this on our skate blades. I've never ice skated, so I don't know much about ice skates. I tried rollerblading once. I couldn't stay up on the things. So I would think ice skating would be the same. I wouldn't be able to stay up on them. And then both the blades. Now this one, we can see the front of the blade and just a little piece of the blade right here. So we'll paint that in with this color. Mix a little bit more here. A little water in my brush so it will flow. Okay, up here to the front here. I do know that this is a toe pick, so I don't know if that's maybe more for like the Olympians, kind of skates the Olympians use. I don't know. I think hockey skater skates are completely different. So we'll do all of our blade areas this color. I could have got a little bit smaller of a round brush. This one's almost too big for this job here. It's got a little jagged edge to it too, so it's not making my lines very smooth. So when I put my second coat on, I'm definitely going to swap this brush out, because everything will need 2 coats. Okay, so we want to go even darker here for the sole of the shoe, almost black, but we're going to make it a dark, really dark gray. So we're going to do the heel. And I'm definitely going to get a different brush. This one is too raggedy. go just down a size. That was, not sure what size that was. That was a 6 round. I don't usually use that large of a round brush. This is a 4, so we'll go with it. Let me mix a little more paint here. And we're going to fill in the sole. I'm just going to show you the first coats here. And clean up my edges here. I made with that raggedy brush that I was using. And then just fill in. You can come back if you need to and add your lines back on there. And then we're also going to do this part of the skate. So I'm going to mix a little bit more. This is where it really is going to give you good practice on mixing your paint. So we're going to go with a really dark gray here. Just all along this bottom. Okay, well, I'll do, this one has a little bit of it showing here. Comes around to the toe, around the tip of my brush a little bit. And then this up here will be the gray sky. So we're mostly all in gray here. So it should be a pretty easy base coating because you're just going to have your gray sky and your black out, your lamp black. And then you're going to mix some values. You're going to have your light gray, you're going to mix a medium gray, and then you're going to have a dark gray. So it should be a fairly easy mix. I'm going to go finish up this skate and get all of my second coats on, and we're going to come back and get going here. Okay, I've transferred on just a few of my lines here on my skates, just to give us an idea of kind of where we're going, in case you can't see after you paint where your lines are. So you can put on just a few lines here. I think the first thing that I want to do before I start trying to turn this into white, I want to take some of our gray sky and a little bit of the black, making kind of a dark gray similar to this, and we're going to put in, go ahead and paint these circles in. Where our shoestrings are going to go. Try and keep them all the same size. Don't get carried away there like I just did with that one. I need a little bit of water in my brush here. We'll do this on both of the skates. Just paint these in real quick. One coat will probably be enough on these because we're going to, some of it will be covered up when we add our shoestrings in here. I'm doing a very good job keeping a circle going here. Maybe should have gone down to a little bit smaller of a brush. I'm trying to stay up on the tip of the brush as much as I can. I really flubbed that one up. A little bit darker here. Okay, and then these little tie things here, where the shoestrings tie around it, they're flat on one side and then round on the other side. So we can put those in. I'm going to try and make them the same size. Oops. and then there's four of them on this skate that we can see. A bit more paint mixed here. Okay, I'm just drawing my straight line, and then my half circle, and now I'm just going to go fill them in. Okay, so there we've got our a few details on our skate here. I'm going to go touch up right there and right there, because that will just bug me. Okay. Alright, we're going to start making the boot part of the skates look a little more white. I want them to look kind of weathered and aged, so we're going to kind of go for that look. So I'm going to load my brush up with some white paint. My brush is damp, so don't feel like you have to use a dry brush for this, so I've got it loaded up with some paint. I'm going to go to a dry paper towel though, and kind of I touch both sides of my brush to my paper towel just to remove the excess off of there. I especially don't want any built up on the tip of my brush. So I'm going to come here and I'm just going to start dragging some of this white paint onto our boot. Let it be a hit and miss kind of thing. If we get it on our eyelets, maybe I should have waited to do those. Probably have to come in and add some of our detail lines back in. I'm going to load some more, kind of offload it. I'm just barely letting the brush skim across the skate here. We can go in between all this stuff. Probably would be a good idea to leave the eyelets off. So I'll put in my instructions to add them later. So up here, we want to keep our gray so that we can see our gray here. Just let it skim across there. Okay, that's just the beginning. Don't stress out. We got a long way to go here. But I think it's going to go fast. So hang on to your skate boots. Okay, so that is just the beginning of starting to add some texture looking stuff onto our skates. Okay, so let's keep going with our white. Load your brush up again, because this is going to dry very quickly. As long as you didn't put it on too thick. Should dry pretty quickly, and we're going to go again. And hopefully when you go the second time, your dragging will leave paint in different areas than you left it before. Load my brush up, offload, especially that tip, because I'm laying it down first, so I want it to not have a bunch of paint on the end of it. When your brush starts running out of paint, you can give it more pressure then. But when you first start out, don't give it a whole lot. Okay, I'm going to go one more time with the white. I'm going to put a little bit more white on my palette. the exact same way. So we're going to do the white 3 times. If after 2 times you've got quite a bit of white on there, then you don't have to go the 3rd time. Oh, these are looking fun already. I want to make sure I get a little bit more here on this tongue. I'll load a little bit more here for my other skate. And try and get a little bit more on the tongue there. I'm giving just a little bit more pressure there so I can really leave some draggy stuff on there. That's probably a little bit more smooth than what I would want, but we're going to come back and drag some other colors on here. So okay, so that's, I've got 3 coats of white. Depending on how much white you put on your brush and how much you remove out of it and how much pressure you give to leave white behind, 2 may be enough for you. So we're going to leave the white there for just a minute. And we're going to go into some other colors and add some other colors on here. One being some black. So we've got our black out already. So I'm going to rinse my brush out here. When we use our black, we don't want to get a whole lot of this. So make sure you've got all the excess water out of your brush. Just work a little bit of it into your brush. And I'm going to offload over here. I'm going to remove a little bit more of that color than I did the white. And we're going to, I got too much moisture in my brush still. We're going to add some black in here. I've got way too much moisture in my brush. There we go, a little bit better. So we're just going to dirty up a little bit. Some scuffy stuff on there. Okay. I'm just going to wipe my brush off that color. I'm not going to go into my water because I don't want to get too much in my brush. And I'm going to load in my brush now some Victorian blue and offload it. And I want to put some touches of this in there. We're going to come back with the white, don't worry. So we've got, I might put a little bit more of this down here at the bottom maybe, the edge. Okay, I'm going to wash my brush out now. I want to get those colors out. Boots are looking pretty rough. Now this is the ugly part of the painting, the ugly stage of the painting, so don't stress out. Okay, so I've got pretty much all the moisture out of my brush. So we're going to go back into our white paint. And I'm going to offload. And actually I offloaded a little bit too much. I want to keep a little bit more paint in my brush this time. But when I start on here, I'm going to just easy pressure here. We don't want to cover everything up, but we really want this to just look like a worn old skate. By the time we get our shading and stuff on here, it's gonna look pretty old and scuffy. Now I don't have much paint left in here. I can give a little bit more pressure to my brush. A little bit more of the white on here. Okay, more white paint out. And we're just going to continue doing this, building some layers onto these skates. Not covering up all of our black and blue that we put on there. We definitely want them to look scuffed up. So white paint. Every time I pick up white paint, I offload it. You can do this with dry brushing. This is kind of a dry brushing technique, but if you want to use a scrumbly old dry brush, you can do that. If that's the way that you like to add some dry brushing on there, feel free, go for it. Okay, a little bit more of the white. I want to put the white right through here, the brightest. It's kind of looking like worn leather, I think, at least from my angle. Not sure how well that's translating on camera, but it's really starting to look good. Alright, I'm going to put some through here. Give it some worn stuff. And I feel like this one on top needs a little bit more. This is looking really good. Just exactly how I imagined it. Just exactly how I imagined it. I'm going to put a little bit darker of a white along the edge here. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. Pretty good for some scuffed up old skates. Okay, we're going to clean our brush, and then we're going to go back in and repaint in our eyelets and add any detail lines that you need back in there. So let me get my round brush. And some black and some gray. Make that really dark gray. Whoa, made that one kind of big. Try not to let them grow. I know it's kind of hard to do. And then these things here we'll paint back in. Alright, go over here and do these. And our eyelets. And get a little water and make my brush a round brush instead of a weird shaped brush. I want to stay up on the tip here because that's going to help you make a better circle. You make a C, then a backward C, and fill in. But it's just the very tip of the brush that is making the C and the backward C. I'm not giving any pressure on the brush whatsoever. Okay, so we got those back on there. We won't add any detail to those till probably after we get the shoestrings in. So if you need to go back in and add your pattern lines in, right now would be a good idea, a good time to do that. So I'm going to kind of define where everything is. I can kind of see where everything was, but make sure I've drawn it in right. Okay, so now we can get to adding some detail on here and some shading and stuff, and we'll add some glazes of color. Alright, so we're adding a float on here of our medium gray mixture, this color down here. Let me get my mop brush here and mop that. Just want to soften that down a little bit. And this is the color we're going to do all of our initial shading with. So we want to separate our tongue here. I'm going to kind of go up on the chisel edge and turn my brush so I can go right down the center of the shoe right there. Pick up a little bit more water, work it in with the paint. And we got a little there, and then we'll come around the tongue here. We'll go along the bottom of our skate. Now you want to make sure that this is dry before you do that, because if you put it on there when it's not dry, you'll just remove it all the way. Okay, I kind of want to make the tongue looks like it's pushed back just a little bit, so I'm going to add an additional little shading right next to it, where the other edge of the other side of the skate boot would be. Okay. Alright, let me mix a little bit more. I've got mine mostly used up here that I mixed. Okay, we'll do this one back here, so we're going to go around. I'm going to wipe the paint off there. A little bit too much, so I wiped it off on my paper towel and picked up a little bit of water. Smooth Easy strokes. Flat strokes is best. Okay, let's see. Where does this one? I lost my line there. That doesn't look right. Nope, it is. This needs to be a little bit more down in there. Come around here. Okay, my brush, where are you? Alright, and we'll go along here. All the way down. Okay, that looks pretty good. Make sure that's dry. I want to continue this float down here at the bottom edge. We're going to separate these here. Okay, that looks pretty good for our initial shading there. So that was with our medium value gray. Okay. Let's add our stitch lines on our boots here. So we're going to go into our black here, and I've got my liner brush. Use whatever detail liner that you like to use. I'm going to pull a little bit of paint out with some water and make it an inky consistency. Alright, I like to wash my brush off and dry it, make sure I've got my ferrule dry, and then load nice fresh paint on my brush. I'll touch the very tip to my paper towel to remove excess water. Now you can put your pattern lines on here if you want to. We're going to add some stitching lines on here across the top of the boot here. They're going to come down this edge. Try to keep them all about the same size and same distance. And then we're going to have them come on this side of our eyelet stuff. And we'll start curving down here. All the way down to the edge of the boot there. Okay, we're going to do the same thing over here on this one. Across the top edge. Down. A little more paint here. Sorry about that. I thought I turned that off, but apparently not. Okay, all the way down there, and then along our eyelets here. Following the curve of the shoe all the way down like that. I'm going to darken these up just a little bit. Okay, we're going to leave the shoe for a minute. We're going to come back and add some highlights on here in a second, but we're going to go down and work on our blades and then on our soles, and then we'll come back and finish the boot. Okay, so for our shading, let's work on the blade first. We're going to take our dark gray mix, which is our gray sky and lamp black. So just get it as close to this color as you can. It does not have to be exact. So don't stress out if it's not. We're going to shade underneath here. And I got paint a little bit too far over on my brush, so let me clean it. And I'll mop this, try and remove a little bit of that. And I'll reload. Next to the sole is where we're putting this right now. Now I think I have a little bit too much water in my brush. Every time I load my brush with paint, I load it with water and I touch my paper towel before I go to my design. Clean up in here. Kind of got a little carried away when I was mopping there. Okay, let's come back underneath here and do this area. I probably could go to a much smaller brush here. So you use whatever brush you like to float with and find one that fits the space. This one does not fit the space very well, so I probably should go to a smaller brush. So let me see what I got here. That's the same size. I don't want the same size, I want a smaller size. Alright, got a little bit smaller brush here. I think might work a little bit better for me. I need to darken that just a touch. A little bit more black in the mix. There we go. That's pretty close to the color that's right above it. Okay. Come in here and do this one. I'm going to go up on the chisel edge of my brush to get right in there in that little area. Kind of pull it out. Now I can lay my brush flat and come across there and then back up onto the chisel edge to go right against that boot. Okay, we're also going to shade along. Let's see, do I want to shade along the top edge or highlight? I think we'll shade along the inside edge here. See how that looks. So we'll come around here. Alright, let's do the bottom one here. Lay your brush flat where you can, soft pressure. Loading your brush is key to floating, and I do have a floating video on my YouTube channel, so if you struggle with floating, you can go watch that. I try to give tips on everything while I'm doing a video. Alright. And then we got a little bit here. On this edge. And I really hope you were on camera for all that, because I didn't look up a lick, not one time. Let's go around this shoe here and shade. I think I may only highlight on the top and the toe pick blade. I think I might go ahead and shade down here. So, and then we'll do a little highlight down the center of it for reflection. So we'll go around the whole blade then. Lay your brush flat, soft pressure. We have a hard line there. Trying to remove that. Alright, load my brush again. Now I just brush mix. Brush mix is the easiest thing to do. You just pick up a little bit of each paint and then you just mix it right here on your brush. Work it into the brush a little bit, get it a little soft, and you are good to go. Okay, I want to deepen a little bit just underneath the sole, so I'm going to get some black and work that into my brush. I didn't clean my brush, I'm just working it in with the color that I had, and just right underneath here I want to darken this. It's got more of a shadow here. On the toe there. Now I can lay it flat. Actually right there. Yeah. A little bit flatter. I'm going to go ahead and go around this shoe as well, a little bit darker around this shoe. Now that's a V. When we get to a V, we push the paint in there and then we round it out ever so slightly. Go underneath here. This needs to be darker under here. A little bit of a V. Okay, we want to know that's the blade and not part of the boot, the heel. Okay, I'm going to wait to do the highlights. We're going to come back, I think, and do all the highlights at the same time because they're all going to be with the same color. So I think I want to work on the boot here. I'm going to put my lines in here so you can kind of see where I'm going. That doesn't look right. Okay, and then right about here is the inside of the heel. Okay. Okay, lamp black is what we're going to use. I'm going to stay with my smaller brush here. I'm just using an 8 flat, but I want you to use whatever brush you are most comfortable using when you float. If you haven't determined yet, I suggest practicing with different brushes. A lot of people like to use an angle brush. It has never been my favorite brush to use, but I know a lot of people love it, so you can use that. I use a flat brush. If you have some of the curved flats, which these brushes are no longer made, but they were some that I encouraged everyone that was learning to float to buy because they really helped you learn how to float well with these brushes just because of the way that they held the water in the brush. Then I would recommend using those. I don't always use those in my videos anymore because you can't get them. Alright, so lamp black, straight lamp black here. So we'll come up to this edge. I think I might have paint a little too far over on my bristles here, so let me clean that out and reload it. You have to load water and paint and work them in together. Okay, we're going to go underneath this edge. I'm not sure I have enough paint now. I have plenty of water, but I'm not sure there's enough paint. Right. Let's mop that. Ooh. Okay, we're going to go along while that dries because we want to come along the back of the heel here. We're going to go along the sole underneath the boot here. A little bit more paint. Smaller brushes just do not carry paint very far. And especially won't carry it if you don't have the water in your brush to help it move along there. Okay, let's do a little bit of mopping to soften that just a little bit. And hopefully you're on camera for that. Alright, we'll do this one. I'm kind of up on the edge of the brush here because that's a small area right there. I don't want to get it out into our background because we can't fix our background if we get something on it. Plain color background you can, but when you have a background with several colors, it's a little bit harder to fix it and not make it look like it's been fixed. Alright, this should be dry here, so we're going to go along the back, all the way down. Walk that in a little bit. And go next to the shoe here. Kind of a V there, so I'm rounding it out and smoothing it out. Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to darken this, so reload. Fresh paint here works best when you're floating. I really want to kind of get this really dark back in here. Make it look like it's tucked up underneath there. Okay, go back along here. Along underneath there, I'm going to mop that very gently brush over it, very gently, just to smooth it out. Okay, very easy there, easy peasy. And then I'm going to come along the back here. And this edge. I'm going to highlight on the bottom edge there. So I think that looks pretty good for our shading on our sole for right now. I'm going to erase my line here that I drew. It's a little distracting for me. Okay, Okay, those are looking pretty good, I think. We're going to add some highlights on here now. Okay, so all of our highlighting on here is going to be done with white. So I'm going to load my brush with some white here. Go back to a little bit bigger brush so that I can carry paint a little bit farther. Probably could still go down to a smaller brush. I'll probably go down to a smaller brush when I get back down to the blades here. We want to highlight on the toe. And you may have to do this a couple times to get it bright enough. Trying to stay off my stitching lines there. I may have to redo my stitching lines because I want to come along that one edge. I'm going to go along the front part of the tongue. Go top of the shoe. And I'm going to go to a smaller brush here. Not as small as the one I had a while ago, but a little bit smaller. Okay, I want to do along this edge right here. So I'm just going to almost line that with my brush. I don't want to use a liner because I don't want a solid line, but come back in, darken up my stitching lines there. This will all have to be repeated, and it might have to be repeated a couple of times to get the white bright, but probably just 2 will be sufficient. Along this edge, along this top edge here, I'm kind of up on the side, the chisel edge of the brush. I want to stay out of my stitching. So again, that's where we could probably wait and do the stitching. Almost forgot that one. Just a little bit along this edge, just lining it with the very tip of this. Okay, I'm going to go over the toe again because I want that to be a little bit brighter. Alright, I want it to be a little bit brighter right here on this edge. I'm using mostly straight paint here, not much water in my brush because I don't want to thin it down too much. Right there, we'll have it a little bit brighter. Edge here. And then up on the chisel edge, I'm going to line right along here. And if you do not feel like you can do that up on the chisel edge, then go ahead and get your liner brush and do that. We're going to come in and brighten up through here on the boots, but for now we want to put a highlight on the edge of the toe pick. So Just a scooch. I think I'm going to move to my smallest brush here, which is an 8 flat for the toe pick, because that was pretty big there. I'm sure I didn't draw this toe pick correctly, but it's okay. Creative interpretation. Alright, let's put some of this highlight along this edge of our boot here. And this will fade down in there quite a bit because I've got quite a bit of water in my brush. And we will put some of this down here and up this edge a little bit. That's kind of a V now, so we'll round it out, soften our beginning and ending edges. Mop that, remove just a little bit of it. We'll go a little bit in here. I think I'm going to shade along that edge there. Okay, I'm going to come back and add some more onto the sole. Oh, I didn't do that sole back there. And we're going to go down our blade. A bit of a hard line right there. So I'll take the damp edge of my brush and soften the paint and remove it. Okay, so for the highlight on the skate, I'm going to get an old, oh man, this brush, I think something's dried in it. Let me find a different one. This one might be too big. So I've got a really old, worn out brush. So I'm going to pick up some of my white on this dry, worn out brush and scrub it off. I don't want to use one of my good brushes because it will not be good for the bristles. So we're going to highlight down the blade. This will take 2 or 3 passes to get this. Let's go on this one. A little bit here. I can put just a touch back there. We're going to go on the sole a little bit. Okay, I'm going to repeat that probably 2 or 3 times. Pick up the paint on the dry brush, remove it very, very softly. Tickle those bristles across here. You can start rubbing harder only when you can tell you're not leaving any paint behind, because then you know your brush is running out of paint, so you can give it more pressure. But when you start out, gentle pressure, important, extremely important. Alright, I'm going to do that again. Very, very soft pressure. A little bit on the sole. It's looking pretty good. I think I might have to deepen my shading on the blades though. I think they might need to be a little bit darker along these upper edges here. So let's go into some lamp black. And we're just going to put this along this upper edge here. Oops. Don't get all lines. Take my other damp brush and clean up out here. Alrighty. Let's go along here. I don't have very much paint on here because I don't want it to be super duper dark. Just needed to have a little bit more of a shadow there. Flinging my brushes, and I'll go up underneath here because I feel like this really needs it. And while I have this black, I want to do this edge. Because we're just going to have a touch of a highlight back there. Okay, let's go back into our white. Finish our highlighting here. Let's get some fresh paint out here. That might be a tad bright there, so we might have to glaze over that. Okay, let's go back to our toe pick here. Give it a little bit brighter highlight. Toe pick. Alrighty, let's do along our sole a little bit. I'm going to kind of brighten this, widen it out just a little bit. I think I might have to go back and shade underneath next to the shoe there because it's a pretty narrow area with our white. So I'll go back in with my lamp black and get a little bit more shading underneath here. We're going to shade a little bit more on the shoe. We haven't finished our shading on the shoe yet. On the boot. This white eraser is an artist's best friend. It will erase your mistakes as long as your paint hasn't cured. But you have to be very gentle with it. And you have to go just very gently so that you don't go through all your layers of paint. get some fresh paint out here, I think. Okay. I want to take my liner brush. Let me get some fresh white out. And clean water when you're thinning your light colored paints. And I'm going to run a highlight down our blade. Maybe a little extra one. Touch my paper towel. I have a lot of paint on the end there. And I think that'll be good for our blade. Focus. We need some focus. Okay, maybe I'll do that on the sole as well. Okay, that looks pretty good there. So let's darken our shading on our shoe here. We're going to go into some black. And I'm going to work it into my brush really well so that I can soften it down and make it a more washy color. And I'm going to remove quite a bit of that off my brush onto my paper towel. Very soft pressure. Well, let's round the heel. Come down the very front edge of this all the way to the end. And then we will mop it. And we're going to do this back here. Need to come around here. I'm going to mop that. A little more water, a little more paint, work it into my brush, get it soft. And we'll come around here. Off there. Alright, we're just going to repeat all of our shading here. I'm up on the chisel edge because I want to keep that more narrow. Right through there. And then up on the chisel edge here. Work it down because we have water in our brush. It's keeping it soft. Don't have to worry about any hardness there. Okay, that's looking pretty good. We're going to add a little bit more brighter highlight through the shoe right here. Put a couple of my stitch lines back in here. Just kind of lost a little bit of them there. Okay, now I want to add more white on here. So I'm going to take another old scruffy brush and load in some white. And again, we're going to remove it. We may not remove as much as we removed in the past, but we're going to remove quite a bit of it. Okay, I'm going to start right in here, just kind of doing an X thing, because that's where I want to brighten up my shoe at, is right there. Very soft pressure when you start doing this, because it's going to be too thick and you'll just have lumps and drag places that you don't want. I think I want to put some of that blue back on there. Okay, those are looking pretty weathered. I like how they're looking. Looking good. Okay, I'm going to clean that brush because I don't think I'm going to use it again. I think I'm kind of done with my dry brushing. So I'll clean both of my dry brushes here. Alright, so from here, I want to add just a touch of that Salem. Was it Salem blue I put in there? No, I think it was Victorian blue. A little bit darker blue. Now, we're going to create just a little bit of wash of this color. So we're going to take our brush and load it with some water. Take a little bit of that paint and move it over here. And we're just tinting our water here. Get it a nice color that you like. You can always add, but can't take away if you get it too dark. So I'm just going to go in here, and I need just a little bit more color in that. Touch my paper towel before I go to my project, and I'm just going to lay some paint in here and mop the edges of it. Just wherever you want to see a little bit of blue in there. So I think on this one, maybe we'll put it on the tongue. Mop it just kind of smooths it out. And okay, let's put some down here. Okay, I'm going to mop all the way around that. Just softening it down in there. See if that's dry yet, because I want to darken this here. Okay, all the way around it. So I get some nice color on there. That one I'm just going to go right into it. And I might deepen this a little bit. I've got a little bit of a hard line there on that edge. See if I can smooth that out a little bit. Okay, so I just want to darken the places where I already put the blue. No hard edges. We don't want any hard edges on here. Okay, let's do that with some black. I know you're thinking, oh black, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Well, we're still going to shear it down. It's going to be mostly water. A little bit of paint. Remove the excess from your brush. And then just a little bit in here. Mop it. Don't want any hard edges now. We won't put too much of this in here. hard edge, so I'm going to redampen that and then quickly mop it. Kind of dug a hole in it there. Okay, see, that's what happens when you just keep mopping, you dig a hole. So I am going to take a damp brush and stroke over that, remove it with a paper towel, and I'll come back and redo that when it dries. Okay, I'm going to darken it right here where I put it just a while ago, and mop it. Let's do a little bit here. Mop it. Yeah, I think I'll put a little bit here with that blue. Mop it. Okay, let me see if I can go back to here and fix this spot. Mop, mop, mop. Okay, that looks better. I still feel like my white needs to be a little bit brighter through here. Almost looks yellow, but I do have white on there, I promise. Okay. Alright, let's go to our eyelets. We're going to shade them, and then we're going to put our shoestrings in there. And then we'll be done with the skates. Okay, for our eyelets here, I'm just going to get straight paint on the edge of my flat brush. So I've just loaded a little bit, kind of worked it into the brush a little bit. I'm going to touch my paper towel to remove any excess. Actually, these down here are the ones I want to work on. And just on each left side, we're going to put a little bit of this black. Now, if you've reduced your pattern to a smaller size than this one, you can just use a round brush to add some black in here. My brush is damp, but it's not loaded with water like it would be if I was floating. So I'm just laying in a soft little bit of this paint. Straight paint. I'll probably come back and repeat because I want that to be pretty dark down in there. Just a little C-stroke to get it in there. You don't want to fill the circle, so don't fill it up. Okay, now on these here, I want to do the opposite side that I did. So we'll do back here on this edge. Repeat that, get it a little bit darker. Okay, then we'll do a little bit of white on this edge. think I'm going to outline these in black. Okay, so let's take a little bit of white and add just a little, maybe, a little bit on the edge here. Use your detail liner up on the tippy toe. Tip, tip, tip. Okay. So now we want to put on our shoestrings. Let me look at my pattern lines. I think I had some of my pattern lines messed up, but let's see if I can get them on here where they belong. Okay, so we've got a shoestring coming out of this hole going across our boot here. So you'll just want to go and transfer your lines on. Then when I get up here, I'm going to kind of start crisscrossing them. And then this one's going to go maybe in the center of that, not on the edge of it. You want your shoestrings to come to the center of your hole that you have here. This one's kind of going up like that. I feel like I need to have one coming across here, maybe here. Let's see, this one's kind of going across here, and this one here. And we can have one coming here and here. So you can do that all the way down. You can make dual, where it's coming actually lacing. So we have one going across and then one coming under. Cross and under. Cross and under. Cross and under. Cross and under. Across, under. Across, under. Everything needs to come to the edge here. Across and under. Okay, so that's how our shoelaces need to come in. So we're going to get our round brush. And our white paint. And we're going to paint in our shoelaces. Got one coming across. This one is across. This one comes over. Over. Across. Over. Across. Start out a little bit past the edge of the skate. Too big right there, so we'll take that down just a scooch. And we'll have to repeat that. But if you have another way that you want to put your laces in, then you can put them in that way. Okay. Make this top one a little bit wider. Okay, so I'm going to go off camera and repeat that so that you don't have to sit here and watch all of that. We're going to come back and do some shading on our shoestrings, and we'll be done with our skates. Okay, we're going to take our black. You don't want your black to be very far over onto your bristles here. We're going to shade back here on these outer edges. Okay, let me do the other one. You got to have it narrow here. You're going to turn your shoestrings into black shoestrings. So I don't have very much paint on my brush. Just enough to put a little down to make it look like these are folded over. Okay, we have to do the same thing on this other edge. Fresh paint is really key here. If you're trying to use paint on your palette that's starting to dry up, then you're going to struggle. So on this edge here where it goes down into our eyelet, and we're going to shade these edges. Okay, pretty good. Okay, now our last thing to shade on our shoestrings. Now this is where if you need to grab a pencil and add any lines back in, you can do that, but where one shoestring, I'll zoom in just a little bit, hopefully I won't get you off camera for this, like this shoestring goes underneath that one, so we need to shade there. This one is over that one. Okay, so we're going to have that one's under, this one's over. Okay, this one is under, this one is over. Okay, so we got to give a little bit of separation to our shoestrings so they don't look like it's just one big shoestring here. That one already looks like it's shaded there instead, so we'll just keep it there. Hopefully it won't be distracting. Okay, so I think that one goes there. Okay, that looks like we've separated our shoestrings nicely, so we'll go over and do the other one with some black here. Darken that a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go do all the ones that are under. Okay, then we can come back and do ones that are over. Okay, so I think that will finish up our shoestrings nicely. I'm going to work a little bit of this shading up the ones that are here. We just want it to be the brightest right in the very middle of our shoestrings. So if we need to darken up here on our edges, let's do that. Especially right where that goes down into that eyelet, we want it to be darker. And I think we're going to build some more on the eyelet itself because it just looks like a black hole right now. So it's just black. You can kind of look at your piece and see if it needs a little bit more shading on it. Okay, I might darken a little bit behind here. So in between our shoestrings here, needs to be just a scooch darker. A little more shadow down in there. So just take the tip of your brush and kind of tuck some down in there. I'm not sure we're going to need a highlight on our shoestrings, but I will let it set for a minute and decide from there. So let's take our gray sky and add just a little bit of black to it. I think these are going to need a little bit more detail around them. Then we'll come back in and add that white highlight that we added before. Every part of the circle that you can see needs to have this gray around it. And don't make them big and fat. Try to stay up on the tip and keep them kind of narrow. Okay, so now they really look like eyelets. And we'll go back with our white now. And just a little bit of a highlight on there. There you go. That looks so much better. So I think I will take my round brush and take some of my white. And this is only if you feel like you've filled up your shoelaces. I don't want my shoelaces being super bright because the skates are kind of old. So you can just kind of put a little bit right in the center of your shoestrings. Not very much. Keep it a small amount. So I'm going to wide angle out so you can see the skates. We might come back to them in a little bit and add some more tints on there. But I almost can't see my toe pick here, so I think I'll take my liner brush. Oh, that's not my liner. Liner brush and a little bit of black. And I think I'll outline. Or try to outline my toe pick a little bit. This is a very thin line. Okay, we don't want it super duper dark. So okay, that kind of defines the toe pick a little bit more. I think that helps it a lot. And one place else I see I want it darkened with some black is back here. There we go. I think that's looking pretty good. So you can go back at any point and darken or lighten anything that you feel needs it. Okay? I think that looks pretty good. Okay, our skates are done here. Paint all over me. So we're gonna move up here. I'm gonna zoom in and move this down so you can see it. We're gonna paint our nail head in right here. So we want to do our medium value gray for our nail head. I just drew a circle on here. I have a circle template and I just drew that on here. Now I'm just kind of going to outline it and fill it in. had originally drawn it over here a little ways, and then I couldn't get my line to erase off. Okay, I'm cleaning my brush. I'll wide angle you out just a little bit here, because we're going to add our shoestrings coming from here up to here. So transfer on your pattern lines for this, or you can freehand it. So we've got this one here. I'll try and keep the whole thing in line here. It's coming out of this hole. We'll come back and shade this. So we're going to follow up this way. I'm using a 2 round, I believe, brush, so that I won't get my shoestrings too fat. And we're going to come up and let it kind of disappear behind this. Okay, because it's going around it. Alright, and then the other one for this skate is coming from behind the skate here. We're going to start it right here and pull it up. Kind of meets that one. And we can have it kind of come around here. And we'll separate those when we do some shading. Okay? And then for this skate, we've got one coming from here. Up. I'm using pretty much straight paint here. Trying not to overload my brush because it will push my bristles out too far. Okay, we're coming up. And around our nail head, and we're going to disappear. So you come up on the very tip of the brush to make it disappear. So then this one is coming from back here. And we can kind of shade to separate those as well. It's coming in with that one. Alright, so we want to create the ends of our shoestring, so we can kind of have this go around like this, because it's going to wrap around the nail head. We won't really see too much of that, but we might see a little bit of it coming around. Okay, and then when it comes around, it's coming off of here for a shoestring. And then we'll put one over here for the end of a shoestring. Get narrower as you come to the end. We're going to put a little shoestring head on it. And then this one is coming more from up here. And then we'll have this one come down here. Okay, so our little shoestrings are coming off like that. So I'm going to try and darken up my shoestrings here just a little bit. I'm going to try and stay directly on the line that I've already painted so that I do not make it any bigger. But I need the white to be a little bit more opaque. And then this one comes across and over. This one here. I see a little bit here, and a little bit here, and a little bit up here. And then our ends. Okay, so while we have our white for our ends, let's make a pointy end on them of our shoestrings. Okay. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'm going to go back over my gray here. I think I got it a little bit too dark the first time anyway, so the second coat will lighten that up a little bit. There's a big nail they're hanging on. Oops. Try to stay in your lines. I mean, it could be a rusty old nail head. Okay, so that has got that. So now we just need to do some shading with some black. Okay, first thing, we're going to shade down here where it's kind of going into that eyelet. Okay. We want to determine which shoestring is going which direction, so I'm going to wipe a little bit of paint off, and we're going to separate our shoestrings here, and this one. I think I put my line in the wrong, my shading in the wrong place, because this one comes over. So let me remove that. This shading here. Put some of my white paint back over it. Because this one is coming over. Well, actually, it should be under. Alright, let's figure this out. This one is going over here. And this one is coming under and coming out here. Alright. So, oops, paint on the wrong side of my brush here. I'm going to try and get this black off right here. My paint's wet, so I'm not sure how much of that I can get off. Okay, this shoestring comes over. And this one is under here. This one is here. Those won't have too great of a shading separation. We'll go work on them. Okay, just a tiny little bit of black in your brush is all you need. So let's shade this one here. We already shaded it here. I'm going to shade along each side of this on the shoe. Too much paint there. You just need a tiny little bit of paint. Okay, I'll go ahead and do these. More paint. Very, oop, you're not even on camera. Very, very narrow float of paint. I didn't hear y'all yelling. You probably were yelling forever, though. Get on the camera, woman! I can hear you. Well, sometimes. Alright, let's go around this one. Go on it here. Just a little bit of water in my brush. Along here, and then shade beside it right here. Very, very narrow, up on the very tippy tip of the brush right there. Okay. Alright, let's see if we can separate these. So this one goes behind, so it is going to have a shading there, because that one goes on top. This one is on top, so this one comes out from underneath it here. If you feel like the black is just too much too dark, then you can go to the darker gray value. We can come back with our white and brighten up, so don't get too stressed out about it. I'm going to shade next to where our end of our shoestrings are. Okay. Very thin paint here. So we're going to go along the lower edges. I'm telling you, that little eraser is a painter's best friend. So I just really recommend you getting one. Not just because I sell them, but because I just couldn't do it without it. I mean, I make enough mistakes that having one is important. Okay, let me come back with some white paint so I can kind of take some of that back down. Just skimming over so we don't have all these hard dark lines here. And add some tints of blue here on our shoestrings too. Not a lot, but a little bit. Let's brighten up our tips here because we want to definitely know that those are the tips. Oh, and the camera shot up on my monitor, that really looks dark, but it doesn't look too dark in front of me. So, but I'm going to take it down just a notch by skimming over it with some white paint. Might be better if we painted these shoestrings in with gray, like gray sky, and then came back and added some white on top of it. It's not very dark here in front of me, but boy, it sure looks dark on my monitor over there. Okay, I'm going to mix a little bit of gray here. I think I'm just going to streak it into our shoestrings. It's kind of a medium value gray. I think that might be a little bit better. Make the shoestrings look like they're kind of dirty, and kind of like these down here where they're kind of dirty looking. Okay, I think that's good enough for our shoestrings. Let's finish up our nail head. And we're going to shade the bottom of it with some black. Walk it up into the nail head a little bit. Find my mop brush so I can smooth out that choppy stuff. And we're going to highlight from the top. I got a weird shape going on here. Do some, let's start out with just the gray sky on the top for a first highlight. A little bit too much water in my brush here. Try and keep your shape nice. Okay, then we'll finish up with a little bit of white on the top. Make sure it's dry. Hard edge over here. Take the damp edge of my brush and clean that up. Okay, I'm going to erase my graphite lines here that I didn't use. You want to brush it away from your paint because you don't want any of that getting in your paint. Let me wide angle out just a little bit so I can look at it. And I think that looks pretty good. I mean, you can put a shadow coming off of the nail head and off of the shoestrings if you want. I don't think I'm going to do that, so I'll leave that choice up to you. I do want to add some color around the outside of the thing out here, the edges. I'm really thinking that those shoestrings are still just a little bit too bright. Through here, so a little bit more gray, I think. So I would definitely base coat them in with a light to medium gray and then dry brush over them with some white. Might be just a little bit easier. think that would be a little bit easier if we just did that. One more place I'm going to shade just a tiny bit more. A little bit underneath the nail head. A little bit of a cast shadow here. I had paint on both sides of my brush. Alright, I think that'll finish those up. And we're going to shade around the outside of our surface here. Alright, so since the outer edges, since this is a large surface, you can pre-dampen down an edge here and try to get the excess water out of your brush and load with Victorian blue is what I think we'll use here. We'll see if it'll be dark enough. I might want to add some black to it. And then we'll just come in here and float this down the edge. We've laid our water in there. Pick up a little bit more because it's starting to thin out and I don't want it to be super thin. We'll round our corners a little bit. Take my mop brush and just very gently mop that. Might be a little too bright, so I think I'm going to add some black into that. And we'll go up this other side. Yeah, I think that's going to be a lot nicer of a color. Now I didn't pre-dampen this side, I just loaded a very damp brush with paint. And I'm going to have to repeat because I'm not getting as good coverage as I would like. So, and I'm just brush mixing, so don't stress out about the color. Go back up the side. I need water in my brush here. Could probably have the paint a little bit farther over on my brush, would probably be helpful as well. Okay, I'm going to mop along the edge there because I really want to soften that. Get the paint off my brush because I don't want to be transferring it. So you got to go to your paper towel and remove the paint on a wet place and then dry it off on a dry place because you'll just continue to transfer paint. Alright, go back and repeat this side. Let's see. And a little mopping. Soften that down. Remove the paint. Dry it off. A little more mopping. This edge right here is white as can be. I'm not really sure how that happened. Okay. Mix a little bit more. Now, like I said, you can pre-dampen. So if you feel like you need to pre-dampen it, then go ahead. I'm going to go down here and do this bottom edge. before it dries. Clean it off, dry it off. Got a little hard edge here. Take care of that. And let's finish out the top edge here. So let me mix a little bit. Now you don't have to add the around the edges if you don't want to. I just think it kind of frames the piece. Clean it off. Go back and gently mop it. Blend it out. And we'll have to do the top again because it's not quite dark enough. I'm going to go down here and put a little bit more on the bottom edge so that all sides have 2 coats. Clean it, dry it. Alright, make sure the top edge is dry. Wet is cool to the touch, so if it's still cool, it's not dry. Alright, come in here and mop it a little bit. We're gonna have to clean that brush here in a minute. So I just use a large flat brush, an old brush. It doesn't have to be anything, you know, good or anything. Just an old 3/4 to 1 inch flat brush, depending on the size of your surface. Of course, obviously, if you're painting on a smaller surface, you'll want to use a smaller flat brush. So, all my stuff out of the way here so we can see this and all of its beautiful glory. And I think that looks great. I think it turned out awesome. Now we can put some more washes on our skates if we want to brighten them up, you know, darken the washes a little bit. And we can put some on our shoestrings too, you know, if you want to go that way, or drag some of the blue on the shoestrings. You could also frame it out with black. Black would be nice. Black probably would have been better, considering we did more of a, you know, gray, dark gray, medium gray kind of tone thing. I don't know that I could come back and fix that with black or not. Just a little bit darker on the edges, I think, would look much better. So I'm just kind of skimming across the edges here. Just straight black. A little more water. Mop a little bit here. And that's a little bit better. A bit better. I probably could bring it in more. I really feel like it's too tight on the edge. I just feel like it's not going where I want it to go. So, let's see. I'm going to really thin down some black because I don't want it to be, maybe add a little bit of that gray sky. No, that's going to make it too opaque. I want it to be more transparent. So when you thin down with water, get this over here maybe where you can see it. You can get it more transparent color. I don't want paint on both sides of my brush. both edges. So I'll clean it off and load up. See if I can scoot that out a little bit. Whew, that's really wet. Lots of water there. I'm working into my brush with that water so it really thins it down. Keeps it from being too overpowering. I'm really trying not to lay down the whole brush, but there I did. Mop brush, got it all over my boot. Booty booty. I really like the black around it much better. So if you like the blue, then keep it blue. Water there. Very gently. I'm just in the water edge there. I want to make sure there's no like shadow line out here in case I had paint over too far on my brush. Alright. Okay, I think that looks a little bit better. Frames out our skates nicely. So you can do the blue and the black mix, the Victorian blue and the lamp black, or you can do just a very sheer color of black by really working the paint into the brush with the water and get it as sheer as you can. And then apply on there as many coats as you want to. Or don't do it at all. That is totally up to you. Try and get that off of there. That's where I got my shadow on my skate. Okay, there we are. Let's see, what am I calling this? I'm calling this one Winter Treasures. So I hope that you guys all enjoyed this video lesson. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you think. I really want to see your painted pieces, so if you've got something painted, be sure and share it, because I just love seeing your interpretation of my designs. So put them out there so we can see them and enjoy painting this. So thank you all for painting with me. Subscribe, click the bell so you can get notifications of future videos that come to my YouTube channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.